what's happening.
We're gonna survive.
What about the people who are out there getting eaten?
The End of Oak Street, August 14th.
Lemonade is changing insurance, starting with filing claims with a tap. That's smart insurance right there. Sign up.
Have fun with it. You playing it today? Nice. Alrighty. What is happening, party people? Across all the land, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and beyond. What is happening? It's your boy, Coach Sean. Back and live and live in color. I'm late. I was supposed to go live at 1, and I knew I had to reschedule it for 1:25, and it's 1:50. Like, y'all, it's just time has not been my best friend today. But we're moving. All right, we're moving, and I appreciate you a ton for checking out, whether you're live, you're watching the replay, all the things. If you're new, my name is Coach Sean. I'm a faith-based relationship coach, and I've helped hundreds of people build healthier, happier, and whole relationships with themselves, with God, and with others while building security that lasts. And y'all are going to actually watch this in real time. I got a nice cup of non-fat Greek yogurt in my hand. Your boy is trying to keep up with his protein goals as much as possible, and it looks like today is going to be a little bit of an uphill battle, but we got it. All right, we're going to handle it. And make up for the lost time. All right. So we are continuing our conversation here in the dating app dilemma, and we're moving on from red flags, yellow flags, and green flags we've talked about the last couple days to now highlighting really a centerpiece as well regarding conversations on boundaries, safety, and pacing. Okay. That seems to be the next step to a lot of our conversations, because a lot of the questions that I've been getting in the midst of streams or even after streams and coaching calls is like, well, what's a healthy pace? What is the healthiest pace that somebody can move at when you're talking about dating, getting to know someone, having conversation, and determining, hey, like, how long is too long, right? Before unmatching or before, you can go ahead and call this connection a wash because things aren't moving in a preferred pace, right? Conversation isn't moving in a preferred pace. Coach, I heard you say things like, waiting, for 24 hours for a text back or being quick to cut somebody off after no contact for 24 hours is crazy. So like, what's a good time, right? And we're going to unpack all that, all right, in this conversation. And that is going to be more so of the centerfold of it. And, of course, this kind of steps into context of emotional access, all right, and how quickly should we be to giving someone emotional access to us, all right, and moving forward with that, okay? And then, of course, learning how to invest in that in the proper way. So without over-talking that, welcome everybody again on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. If you're unfamiliar with my content, what I do, my name is Coach Sean. I'm a faith-based relationship coach. I've helped hundreds build healthier, happier, and whole relationships with themselves, with God, and with others while building security that lasts beyond marriage. All right. And these are conversations that we're building in this series regarding the dating app dilemma, because so many people are using dating apps, whether they are active, inactive, whether it's for passing time or intentionality. So many people are on them. And for you who are interested not just in dating, but finding a life partner, being serious about engaging in dating, yes, can this be an outlook that you use 1,000%? And this isn't necessarily something that we are kind of trying to create a conversation around, should you use them or should you not use them. But I definitely want to give you the best tools and the best perspectives to consider in your journey of dating, so that in the event that you choose to use dating apps, in the event that you choose to move forward with those things, you know how to use them in the best of ways, because now we need to know how to navigate it now that it's here and it's only growing. Okay. Only more and more people are downloading the apps, using the apps. And yes, it is playing a role in some of the fatigue and experiences or lack thereof people are having in dating. However, before going into that rabbit hole, this entire series has been designed to give us some great starting places and conversations that we want to center to date healthily, that really starts with you, not trying to change the dating pool or wish the dating pool was better or different for your liking and for your comfort. Okay. So throughout this series, we talked about a plethora of things. I'm not necessarily going to highlight too much of that because we got to get into this because I don't have a whole lot of time. So we're going to lock in. Okay. If you missed this stream, all right, I know I was supposed to go earlier, so my apologies. Just check out the replay. All right. If you're on TikTok, check it out over on YouTube. Obviously, YouTube, you know the deal. It's live replays that are typically posted within 24 hours of this live happening. And so be sure to check out the replay and going forward from there. And I noticed that the title isn't updated. So boundaries, safety, and pacing. Okay, that's kind of the title for today's thoughts. All right, so I'm excited, and I hope you are too. As you're coming into this chat, into this conversation, do me a favor, share your life satisfaction rate on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, share what's a goal what's a goal that you have to achieve in your relationships in 2026. We are now 7 months in. Okay, we are now in the 7th month of 2026. This year has came and went. Before you know it, we're going to be celebrating Christmas, Thanksgiving, and New Year's all over again. And this is an opportunity for us to really get recentered and refocused on what the rest of the year is going to look like. And more importantly, you taking advantage of it by making different decisions mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. Okay, so what is a goal that you have in reaching for your relationships in 2026? And then, hey, what's one of your biggest challenges that you've experienced in relationships that you are wanting to overcome? All right. Those are the 3 questions. If you don't answer any of those questions, we may have time for Q&A in the end. No promises or guarantees. Okay. But stick around because this conversation is going to be really helpful. And I appreciate all the likes, the reposts, the shares. That goes a long way. Definitely encourage you to do that. Please be sure to follow, subscribe if you're interested in following on more of these conversations that are designed to help you do relationships in the healthiest of ways. All right. I got other things that I'll share with you towards the end, but we will come back to it. In the meantime, let's get this conversation started. All right. So, with this conversation, y'all gonna have to forgive me because I'm gonna get this yogurt in. Like, hey. I'm gonna get this yogurt in. Okay. Greek yogurt, plain, non-fat. You just add a little bit of honey in that mug. Now, I'm typically the type to put some fruit in it. I just don't got any right now. So, man, you throw some honey in that mug. Oh, my Lord. It's actually solid. Okay, and it's a great source of protein, quick 17 grams to kind of get some stuff moving and some stuff going, all right? So, but let's go into this conversation. All right, because again, this is really, really important. And especially for a lot of you who are watching my content, I've been taking a look at the analytics across the board and all platforms recently. And I've noticed that there's been some shifts, especially over the last year, with the audience that pays attention to my content and how more women than men, all right, are actually listening in and paying attention to some of this conversation. And of course, there's no really preference in which way that goes. But I think this is something that's really the ladies, you guys are wanting to lean in on this conversation. Because as we've talked about before, not only are more women on dating apps than men, okay, statistically, but we also witness how women experience dating a lot differently compared to men from a psychological approach. Men can benefit from this conversation as well. Okay, so it's not just for the ladies. Okay, so fellas, stick around, obviously. But I'm just calling out the ears of the ladies for a second because dealing with anxious attachment, Okay. Dealing with a lot of anxieties and expectations and pressures, and the world in which you live in, where dating is actually a lot difficult and in a lot of ways unfathomable from a guy's perspective. Okay. I just want to call that out. It's unfathomable in a lot of different directions from a male's perspective when it comes to a woman's experience in the dating space. I think there's a lot that you're going to gain from this conversation, listening in, and making the most of it. Okay. And as I mentioned before, I think the main tension in this talk is just recognizing how quick we can be to give emotional access to people. Okay. And sometimes we can just be so thriving or I won't say thirsty, but we can be so excited for emotional connection and conversation. We can be so excited to finally meet somebody after a long tenure of meeting plethora of people who don't have substance, who don't have depth, who can't really carry a conversation. You finally come across somebody who seems like they got a little bit or a lot of that in them. And then all of a sudden we go from, small talk or, small surface level questions to now we're diving so deep into various lanes. And before you know it, we've actually created an emotional connection with somebody a little bit sooner than maybe we were genuinely ready for, the relationship was ready for. Okay. And then how to navigate through there. Okay. And so E3, I don't know if that's a question. I don't know if that's a question or not, E3. But stick around, man. I'm going to come back to some questions towards the end of this quick stream. All right. So please stick around, follow for more follow up. I'll definitely take a look at that. So yeah, giving emotional access too quickly is a very real thing. Giving too much emotional investment into people too soon is a very real thing. And especially for women, as we've looked at in previous conversations, if you're unfamiliar with what we're referring to, go back, watch the replays. We actually had a 2-part conversation regarding the psychology of dating for men and women, and the psychology of the dating apps. And in the psychology of dating, men and women, okay, and the perspectives that are looked at, a lot of women find themselves statistically more burnt out, fatigued because of the emotional investment that is given, whether it's so soon or so often when it comes to making connections, because obviously women connect emotionally as a beginning place for conversation and connection, whereas men don't necessarily enter in those spaces from an emotional direction. Hey, shout out to Sean in the building. Appreciate you a ton. Y'all, please go follow and check out Love After Divorce. He's in the TikTok chat, but also on YouTube as Scary to Remarry. Phenomenal conversations, phenomenal leader. Been having an opportunity to sit with him and talk with him about many things, and I'm sure we'll circle back around at some point to more conversations, man. But please check his content out. He's doing amazing stuff. And I'm proud to not only be a part of that, but to be able to witness it. So I appreciate you a ton, man, for stopping by. So like we were saying, okay, like men approach dating a lot differently than women, right? And women definitely move with a place of great levels of emotional investment early on. And so because of that level of emotional investment that is placed from conversation to conversation, perhaps on dating apps from match to match, date to date, women tend to grow fatigued a lot more because there is an emotional drainage that takes place that for a lot of women is hard to recover, hard to heal through. All right. Because emotions and emotional states is really a centerpiece to their availability and connectivity with others. Okay. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing. We're not here to paint that as the wrong direction, as the bad direction. Okay. Or something that you shouldn't do. What we are wanting to do is learn how do we manage that in a healthy lane without giving too much too soon, stepping into places of oversharing, stepping into places of people pleasing, okay? Or just constantly finding yourself so emotionally drained from one person to another, okay, that it gets a little bit outlandish, okay? And so with this conversation, all right, again, emotional access is given too quickly. And then we might call it heartbreak, all right, when the person never earned that level of investment, okay? So this is kind of how you have, for example, people who are in talking stages, in pursuit stages, in early dating stages. You've only known them for 2 months. the relationship has fallen apart, or the connection isn't really making strides, progressing. And so one of you or both of you agree to go your separate ways. And this felt like a breakup of a relationship from somebody you were dating for 5 years. Like, this is a talking stage, or somebody that you were just getting to know. There was no official labeling. There was no official direction, nothing that was stamped. And yet in a couple months, you began feeling the weight of the separation as if this is somebody you are now divorcing from. Okay. And what's crazy is the talking stage, maybe you had just met, it's only been a month. You've only had a few FaceTimes, one date, okay, maybe 2 dates. All right. But you haven't really gotten a chance to really get ingrained with this person's life, with this person's direction, with where this person is wanting to go, and vice versa for them to you. And yet the absence of them is tearing you a new one. And this is very, very much big proof of how much we're clinging to outcomes and how much we're clinging to potential over what is. Okay, this is proof that the clinginess, the emotional investment isn't necessarily coming from everything that we're seeing in this person that makes them so perfect, makes them so great, but is more than likely coming from the overwhelming clinginess to what you hoped could be, the potential you were investing into, the stories that you were creating in your mind towards this person. Okay, and ultimately what that could mean for you. All right. And so what's really, really important in this entire conversation is honesty. Okay. We're not going to really get far if we are unwilling to be honest about our role in the emotional investment we poured into people and relationships in early stages, dating stages. Okay. That really didn't warrant that level of investment that early. Okay. And we're going to talk about how we're going to set that pace and what does that look like to do it healthily. And there's a great scripture that comes to mind from a background of this conversation when we're talking about emotional investment. How much access should somebody that I just met have to me, okay, in early stages so that I can navigate this in the healthiest of ways? And if you're familiar with this passage, it's crazy because this just came to mind. I've talked a lot about this on my channel. And this was actually from the Old Testament in a connection to King Hezekiah. All right. So if you check out, I believe it is Second Chronicles? All right. Sometimes I get them mixed up, y'all. I've done a lot of studies on these things. And sometimes you know the scripture by heart, and then sometimes you just know the story, but we're approaching it. Okay. So I'm going to bring this up for a second. All right. And this would not be 2nd Chronicles 20. All right. That's actually Jehoshaphat's prayer. That's really, really good, by the way. 2 Kings chapter 20. Okay. That's what it is. 2 Kings chapter 20 is kind of the point reference that I would use in this entire conversation, because just to give you some context and background, this is now in a time where Israel is now deciphering and going through a litmus test of kings. Okay. Israel was not supposed to be like the other nations around them of having kings, but Israel was so caught up on being like them that God went ahead and gave them what they asked for without them knowing exactly what they were asking for. Okay. It sounds familiar because some of us have done that. Lord, give me this, Lord, give me that. But we're not really too sure exactly what we're asking for or what is required in order for us to have it, or what are the consequences that are on the other side of us having the very thing that we're asking God for. Okay, but that's neither here nor there. In this context, okay, Israel, again, going through different litmus tests of kings. And in this particular season, Hezekiah is a king. And Hezekiah is actually one of the better kings that Israel experiences, one of few good kings that they have. But Hezekiah is actually in a season where he's sick, okay? And he's experiencing this massive sickness and, really on a near deathbed, you could say. And God actually gives him 15 years of life. He extends his life for 15 additional years, hearing the cry of Hezekiah, answering the prayer, and he experiences this form of recovery. Okay. But while he was sick, enemies of the land, Babylon, who was the strongest, second strongest nation at the time, at this current culture in time, Assyria was the strongest nation in the land. Okay. So Assyria is about to get knocked off by Babylon. Babylon is like not too far off, but like one of the second strongest militant lands. And so they're out here and they get word that Hezekiah is sick. And so they kind of just show up on his front door. Okay. I'm summarizing 2 Kings 20 here, but they show up on his front door. Okay. And they're wishing Hezekiah his best gifts, his best wishes. All right. Because they heard he had been very sick. And Hezekiah receives the Babylonian invoice. Okay. As it's described in the text. And he doesn't just receive the gifts, he literally opens up his entire home and palace to them without even thinking twice about, one, why are they even here? Okay. And then two, like, where are they sent from? What's going on here? Right. He doesn't think about any of that because Babylon, as we might kind of dive into this text and see, obviously has a higher status than little old Israel from nation to nation. Okay. Babylon is a very strong, well-known, wealthy like nation. Israel, not so much. Okay. Judah, Jerusalem, not so much. All right. So there's a status difference. And then there's also not just a status difference within the two countries or two nations, but there's also a status difference between Hezekiah and his kingship and then the kingship or leadership of Babylon. Okay. And so Hezekiah, now recovered from this sickness, opens his house up to these Babylonian envoys who really don't want anything to do with Hezekiah. They're just spying. And they get what they want because they walk right in. They see everything that Hezekiah shows them. And then Isaiah, who is the prophet in this time, okay, who would actually even have his own book written later in the Old Testament, he shows up and he promises him that everything that Hezekiah just revealed to them is going to be taken up. Okay, like you just exposed so much to these people, and this is going to come back and hurt your lineage. It's going to come back and hurt Israel because this is going to be the very thing that they come back to take. Okay, I want to actually read some of the passage to you just so you know where I'm coming from with this. Okay, so this is starting at verse 12 of 2 Kings 20. It's easily one of my favorite passages of scripture, but again, it's going to set the tone for what we're talking about because we're talking about giving too much access too soon. Okay. So verse 12, soon after this, Merodach Baladan, okay, probably messed that up, but you get it, son of Baladan, king of Babylon, okay, sent Hezekiah his best wishes and a gift. For he had heard that Hezekiah had been very sick. Hezekiah received the Babylonian envoys and showed them everything in his treasure houses, the silver, the gold, the spices, and the aromatic oils. He also took them to see his armory and showed them everything in his royal treasuries. There was nothing in his palace or kingdom that Hezekiah did not show them. Okay, there was nothing. He exposed it all. Then Isaiah the prophet went to King Hezekiah, verse 14, and asked him, what did those men want? Where were they from? Hezekiah replied, they came from the distant land of Babylon. What did they see in your palace? Isaiah asked. They saw everything. Hezekiah replied, I showed them everything I own, all my royal treasuries. Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, listen to this message from the Lord. The time is coming from when everything in your palace, all the treasures stored up by your ancestors until now, will be carried off to Babylon. Nothing will be left, says the Lord. Some of your very own sons will be taken away into exile. They will become eunuchs who will serve in the palace of Babylon's king. Then Hezekiah said to Isaiah, this message you have given me from the Lord is good. For the king was thinking, at least there will be peace and security during my lifetime. Okay, so stick with me, all right, if you want to read that for yourself. Again, the address is 2 Kings 20, verse 12 through 19, okay? And this is really good. This is really good. Hey, I appreciate you a ton. Thank you so much. You're doing good work, King. Keep going. Hey, I appreciate you. I appreciate you a ton. And so this is really good, though. This is going to set up the stage for what we're talking about. What does Hezekiah, Babylon, Isaiah, prophet, Old Testament have to do with dating apps and using dating and all the things, okay? We're going to connect the two, but I really want you to see for a second the message behind what is being stated here, okay? What is being shared is that Hezekiah was so caught up in his own world and perhaps in different lanes of implicit messaging. He was caught up in being in people pleasing. He was caught up in wanting the attention of higher ups, higher leaders, higher statuses. Okay. He was caught up in trying to overshare and expose so much about what he was doing and what was behind the scenes in his own palace that it was actually something that caught him up. Okay. He got caught up in all of that because he was so busy trying to present himself to be more than what he was to people that had greater status than him, greater accesses to than him, okay, that showed up to him at his front door, showering him with gifts, making him feel so seen and known because of his sickness that they had heard about. Okay. And this is the very response that he gives. He opens up his entire palace, so on and so forth. What is the point? Hezekiah is actually a big picture of what a lot of us do relationally with so many other people. Hezekiah is a great picture of what a lot of us do in the dating space, friendship space, business space, so on and so forth, because you find yourself not really seeing yourself in the same lens and ways that God sees you. You definitely don't see yourself in such a uplifting, positive manner, warm, welcoming manner, okay, that when other people decide to give you what you need, you turn that into meaning more than what it is. And because they begin to shower you with gifts, they begin to shower you with attention, they begin to shower you with compliments, they begin to shower you with all this other kind of stuff, you take that to mean that this is an opportunity to not just share more, but share everything, give everything, because to you, that means that there's more access to be granted. If I give more, if I share more, then that means that I'll be received. The more I share, the more I give, the more I open up to, right, the more opportunity I'll have for this person to choose me, because I'm not comfortable with, one, choosing myself, or two, coming into the agreement of how God already sees me and valuing that above anything else. Hezekiah was already a king. Hezekiah was made king and was doing well in God's eyes. But yet he was so caught up in the Babylonian envoys, higher statuses, higher access points, all these things. And so he gets caught up in that. And then he opens himself up to so much more, willing to share more than he needed, which actually ends up coming to hurt him because he gave too much access too soon. Okay? He gave too much access too soon. I have a unique note in this side note here from this passage that reads this: just because you're gifted and given kindness doesn't mean you should give and show everything in return. Just because you're gifted, you're given gifts, okay, or you're gifted and and given such kindness doesn't mean you should give and show everything in return. How many of you have been so caught up in the dating space, right, where you finally get some attention? Somebody is finally responding with a little bit of urgency. Somebody is finally leading with a little bit of date action. Somebody is finally willing to give you a FaceTime call and give you some compliments and tell you how beautiful you are, how amazing you are, how dope you are. Somebody is finally showing a little bit of their willingness to have some substantive conversations. And to you, that's like, oh, that means I need to lock in and I'm ready to give it all. Even to the point of giving up your body, even to the point of giving access to all of what God, not just what God's doing in your life and testimonials and all those things, but you just give so much deeper access to you than really what is warranted from this person's behavior. All because we were like, oh my goodness, this is an answered prayer. God then came through. God then came through. And we find ourselves on the back end after 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Okay. We come back on the back end after those first few weeks that seemed really, really good. Attention was high, messages was high, love was high, promises were high, excitement was high, dopamine was at a new level. And now we find ourselves on the floor, crying, nauseous, can't eat, all because of so much we invested into this person early on, more than what was actually warranted, because we gave too much too soon. Because in all honesty, we did not see ourselves in the same way this person was protesting and professing to see us in. And it literally led us down a path of unforeseen unfortune. Right? And so like I'm painting this picture for you from this passage of scripture and connecting it to your dating. Because if we don't get to a place of accepting and acknowledging and resting in who you already are, how God sees you, and more importantly, being willing to give yourself what you are just so desperately waiting for somebody else to give you when it comes to attention, when it comes to love, when it comes to acknowledgement, when it comes to celebration, when it comes to so many of these other things, you will quickly fall for people who will see things in you that you may not see in yourself and use that as ammunition to then go all in to the point where you will overshare, give too much access too soon, and it actually will be something that comes back to hurt you. And it's not necessarily coming into the place of like, okay, well, now I have trust issues, right? Because that's the very next thing that comes out of that. Well, now I got trust issues. I can't trust men. I can't trust women. I can't trust. No, it's actually we just don't know how to trust ourselves enough on when is too much. When is it too much? When is it too much to give, right? Like we don't trust ourselves to be able to discern how much should I give in this moment, in this conversation, in this connection, at this stage of the relationship. And if we can deal with that and answer that, now the idea of just walking around with trust issues actually diminishes because we're no longer giving other people external to us the power to determine our ability to trust. It's more so of learning from the decisions we made without expecting ourselves to be perfect, while also learning and recognizing that our confidence to recover is the main focus. Because if our confidence to recover is greater than our fear of failure, now we have better direction to go when it comes to dealing with relationships and being present enough and patient enough to know when to give and when to pull back, when to share and when to observe, when to give access and when to put up a pause to say, let's slow down. That's the goal. Something Hezekiah didn't do that by reading this story, we can actually apply and learn how to do for ourselves in applicable ways. Is this making sense? Is this making sense? Put a 1 in the chat if this is making sense. Okay, I don't want to be talking over your head too much. All right. But this is something that's really, really important and a great foundation to now seeing, okay, now kind of having a picture of boundaries, safety, pacing, access points. Cool. Well, how do we apply this in our dating? How do we apply this in relationships? How do we apply this in a dating app sense, engaging with people and being in a process with people? All right. And so really what we're covering here is on a plethora of spreads. All right. Regarding emotional pacing, physical safety, spiritual boundaries, sexual boundaries. Okay. Not over disclosing too early, not treating texting like intimacy. Oh my goodness. That's something we could literally turn into an entire live. I don't have time. Okay. Not giving boyfriend, girlfriend access to someone you barely know. Okay. How to exit respectfully in the manner that this is not fitting. This is not helpful. This is not something that's actually progressing or something you no longer want. All right. And then how to slow down without playing games. Okay. A lot of people try to tell themselves that if we go too slow, somebody's playing, somebody's not intentional, someone's not caring. And then if we go too fast, right? Well, it's like, oh my goodness, like, you know, we might kind of conflate the speed, the pacing to mean that it's from God or it's something from divine places. Let's pull this back a little bit, right? Because dating in and of itself is something that is supposed to be enjoyable. It's something that's supposed to be a place where we're able to have fun. We're not supposed to be in early stages where we're taking this oh so seriously that we can't laugh, that we can't have a moment, that we can't, you know, get to learn one another without expecting this to go the distance. Okay. There's got to be some nuances that we play with, but that we obviously not play with in the sense of lack intentionality, but we just simply aren't present with in the duration of the dating experience. Okay. And the biggest thing that I want you to see that is relative to this text that we started out with, and that's relative to your dating connections that is implied through this text, is that access should be earned through consistency, not granted because you feel like chemistry. I hope you write that down somewhere. Like I'm giving y'all game. I really am. I'm giving y'all game. I hope y'all are like taking notes, writing this down somewhere. Y'all plan to watch the replay because like don't what you are now under this kind of thought process. You can't say ain't nobody try to help you process through some things. You can't say that. You lost that privilege. All right. So Access should be earned through consistency, not granted because you feel chemistry. And again, this passage of scripture that we opened up with, no, in no way, shape, or form is it talking about dating. In no way, shape, or form is this context talking about dating relationships. They don't even do dating in the whole entire Bible. That's not even a thing. Arranged marriages are the thing. Okay. So the Bible doesn't talk about dating. However, there's a lot of different implicit messages that we can pull from studies, from the fruit, from the messages that we can apply, not just in our dating life, but in all areas of our lives, even though this is a different culture, a different time, and a different setting for a different audience than what we're really applying for. Okay. And so this is really good. Okay. So when we're talking about emotional pacing, all right, we're talking about the level of emotional investment. Okay. This is kind of what I want to connect with emotional pacing. So to give maybe applicable examples of emotional pacing. Okay. This is more so of how much are you ready to share with someone when you're getting to know them? That's kind of the question that you're asking. How much are you willing to share with someone as you're getting to know them in beginning stages? Okay. There is a difference, okay, between talking about things that are intentional that actually shows progress in a early stage of connection, and then jumping so deeply into therapeutic like conversations. Massive difference. Okay. When we're talking about emotional pacing, okay, we're talking about things that we may share that come from vulnerable, transparent places, right? If I'm transparent, I'm just simply honest about something. If I'm being vulnerable, this is something I'm telling you that you would not have guessed about me and you would not have known about me unless I told you. You got to write that down. Transparency is a measurement of honesty. I'm just going to come out and be honest about what this is, where we are. If I'm being vulnerable with you, then I'm going to tell you something that you probably would not have guessed or known about me unless I told you. Okay? So you're not being vulnerable if you're telling the obvious. You're not being vulnerable if you're telling the obvious honesty about a moment. You know, I was late to the stream. Right? So me opening up this entire thing with talking about how late I was to the stream, that's not vulnerability. Okay? Vulnerability would be, man, you know what? For example, man, y'all, I was honesty and transparency, right? So I might use both. Transparency, I was late to the stream. I said I was going to be here at 1 p.m. I wasn't. I was late. But man, y'all, I had a moment today when I was coming from the gym. This is just an example, didn't really happen, but let's just unpack it. The vulnerable moment, oh my goodness, y'all, like I had a moment, man, where I was actually having a legitimate anxiety panic attack, and it was crazy, right? And we dive more into that. Probably would not have known that unless I told you, right? That's a vulnerable moment. And vulnerability is something that is designed to be treasured. But vulnerability is supposed to be earned and is a gift that should be treated as a gift that is earned through ways of constant communication and consistency with who you're connecting with. So the first thing that you have to ask yourself when you're trying to set the emotional pace is, how much am I willing to share with this person as I'm getting to know them? What are some things that I don't mind them knowing, even if this doesn't go another day, another conversation, another date, another week? Okay. Even though we don't need to go so deep, okay? But we also can have some conversation still that's beginning to show some substance, and that is still helpful. That's still allowing them to get to know you without you going so deep that you're talking about, disorders, or you're talking about, mental or emotional challenges that you may be facing in this season, okay? Without you talking about some of the things that has broken you to your core. Right? Like, you don't necessarily have to go so deep in that. So we have to set a healthy emotional pace, and setting a healthy emotional pace is dealing with these few things: expectations. Okay. And what am I allowing myself to connect with this person on that doesn't involve us going so fast, so soon? What am I okay with sharing with them? Okay. And everybody is at different spaces. Okay, so I'm not trying to necessarily create a list to follow, because there are some of you who are listening, you might be at different places in your dating and in your access points where you have a level of capacity, maturity, honesty. You've come to peace for a lot of different things in your life that for some people would be more difficult to share in early stages, but for you, maybe not. Right. And so I think, again, it comes to the conversation of capacity. But for me, for example, like, I'm okay with, in the midst of having conversation and I'm getting to know someone and maybe there's some deeper questions that are asked, I'm okay with talking about my porn addiction when I was in middle school and high school, and that being a part of my testimony that I'm sharing with this person as we're getting to know. Like, I don't mind you knowing that. I mean, I've come on the internet and talked about that, so I don't mind you knowing that. Just like I don't mind telling somebody one of the things that I recovered from in my healing journey was rejection, because I experienced a litmus test of rejections and one of them hurt me to my core and I had to do some healing. Right? Like, I don't mind sharing that. One, because it's public knowledge. It's literally on the internet. And that's just for my lane and my experiences. Okay. But also, two, because it does open up for more conversations. And that's not something that I'm losing sleep over if, man, did I share too much? Did I show too little, all the things. Okay. That's completely okay. But that's just where I'm at in my capacity for those level of conversations. I want you to measure where you are in your capacity. And I think you measure that by your expectations. So what are you expecting? Okay. What are you expecting? What are you after? These are some good questions to ask yourself before you step into some deeper conversations that you start sharing with somebody. Like, what is the goal? What are you after in sharing this? Is there something you're looking for in the event of sharing this? Sharing it so deeply, sharing it so fast, sharing it so soon? Are you looking for anything? Approval? Are you looking to be accepted? Are you what? What is it? Maybe for some of you, you share it because you hope if you share it, they'll walk away and you don't have to tell them no. Well, that's probably not the best direction. You probably should just say, hey, I'm not interested, instead of just sharing something off the wall that you hope would give a bad impression of you for them to walk away. Right? But what is the goal? What am I after? Okay, that's a healthy question. You don't have to ask all these questions, but just a good, curious starting point. Okay? For some of you, it might be, is this something that if I share this, is there any part of me that fears, right? That, like, I'm probably going to lose sleep over this. I'm probably going to feel really, really uncomfortable. Okay. I think you do measure that, especially for the ladies. If you really do feel uncomfortable speaking to something sooner than you're prepared for, listen to that. Listen to that. I think that's a great start. If you feel legitimately uncomfortable about talking about, the depths of previous relationships, we should not in any way, shape, or form be talking about anything trauma related, anything, mental and emotional, damaging related. That is, like, just so rough and so bad. Like, we should not be talking about that in the first conversations meeting somebody. Okay? Like, that shouldn't even be first 3 dates type of conversations. Now, again, people are different. All right. So again, you got to measure your capacity. There's some people who are more prepared for those conversations earlier on than others. But if you're connected to somebody who isn't, and you are, all right, then this isn't something that we want to force them to get to do either. This isn't something that we need to corner somebody else to do either. Let's just be in the present. Maybe there are some conversations you're ready for that person isn't. That doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't still talk to them. If you're still enjoying your time, enjoying the flow of the conversation, it's just maybe not as deep as you want it to be. That doesn't mean it needs to be deep, and not every conversation needs to be deep. I know you like studying and you like reading and you like learning and you like all those things, and this is just as much for me as anybody else. Like, it don't necessarily mean that the conversation isn't helpful because you can't talk about the deepest things. Learn to have fun and have engaging conversation without always being so deep that you sound like a scholar, a therapist, or something along those lines with every conversation. Okay. It's a pace. It's a pace. Those first 3 dates should be something that's designed for you guys to get to know each other and have fun, not to become your coach, your therapist, or anything of that sort so deeply so soon. All right. So we're just setting those paces in order to engage in healthier conversation. And this is really good for the ladies, right? Because it's not just so much about the access you're giving to someone else based on what you're sharing with them. This is also some of the things that you might kind of prod at and you want to know, right? Some things you don't need to know so soon. Save that for later stages of the conversation when you guys have some level of stability and foundation of what this could be. All right. So then there's physical safety. All right. Physical safety is very important. So this pacing, how much access should be granted? One, if you don't feel physically safe in an environment, then it's probably a sign you shouldn't be there. Okay. We need to listen to that. All right. And in order to create a sense of physical safety, one, it starts with you being a safe person. And that goes for both men and women. Okay. This is not a conversation designed to tell men that they just need to feel safe and women just need to be whatever. No, women, you need to actually put intentional work so that you become a safe person too. Okay. It goes both ways. But when we're talking about physical safety, that's more so emotional safety. All right. On the latter, what we were just bringing up. On a physical safety note, okay, this pacing probably doesn't need to involve y'all being at each other's houses on the first date. In order to experience this level of physical safety, it probably doesn't need to involve you both being in some disclosed area. Okay. Matter of fact, I think some of the best first few date places, you always want to be in a public setting where you're around other people. Okay. You know, so there's the safety measurement of the date and of the conversation or meeting in person. Go out to a restaurant, go out to a fun zone of some type. If it's the mall, if it's state fairs, if it's church, I don't know. Right. But we're going out to a place where, hey, there's some lighting. There's some people around you. OK. And he should be able to lead that in the dating space. Like there just shouldn't be any invitations to private places, homes, and all that kind of stuff on first dates. It just doesn't make sense to me. Okay. If we're really prioritizing the safety of the person that we're looking to court, engage with, then I also want to take into consideration what these decisions and places may mean for you and what level of safety it may bring for you so that we can actually enjoy the company we're sharing together. So the first few dates need to be out in a public place for show. All right. A lot of lighting. Okay. Other people are around you. If it's a restaurant, local place, whatever. Okay. And so that means a lot. Now let's do spiritual boundaries. Okay. And spiritual and sexual boundaries are going to go hand in hand. And I see your question, Bailey. And I appreciate you asking that. I'm going to follow up with you after we close this entire session or section out. Okay. Thoughts on avoidance. We'll cover that. Okay. Just stick with me. And send me a message too. I can always respond there as well. Spiritual boundaries are really, really good. Y'all, listen. This might get me in trouble. We should not be in each other's prayer closets when we first meet. Like, we should not be sharing some of the deepest, intimate prayers we have prayed with God to somebody we just met. No. We should not be having intimate prayer time where we are coming together and we're talking about with each other some of the deepest prayers that we're sharing with God and we're asking God to do in our lives. Y'all, we just met. That is something that makes sense if, we're a year or so into the relationship. Like, this is something that is headed towards marriage. This is kind of one of those things. Now, I'm not saying that y'all can't pray together, right? I'm not saying that it's just crazy and asinine to pray over your food together or all the things. But we should be very, very careful, man, to not expose so much of the things that we've been praying and talking to God over regarding our lives and where we are with somebody, one, that we just met, or two, that we are still in early stages of dating and courting, fam. Like that's just too soon. You're giving too much access too soon. Okay. We can go to church. That's amazing. Cool. Right? We can go to church. I'm not even necessarily too mad about the Bible studies, but they don't need to be extremely deep. You know what I mean? Like, I've had awesome conversations with people that I've met, women that I've met. We dove into some biblical conversations, but it wasn't necessarily a Bible study. I think that's cool, especially depending on the capacity you have. I think that's cool. But like, we should not be in each other's prayer notes, prayer closets, all the things. Y'all, you have to be mindful. That is a very intimate space spiritually. And not everybody deserves access to that because they go to church, because they know some scripture, and because they know how to dance when the Hammond B3 is going crazy in church. Or they know how to shout and raise hands when the choir is singing, when the preacher is preaching, because they attend Bible study. Fam, we are using so many surface things to determine fruit. I'm not saying it ain't a start. It's a start. But you really don't know, as we talked about yesterday and in previous streams, you really don't know the fruit somebody carries until you witness the longevity, until you witness the consistency, until you witness the habits and disciplines and decisions that you're around to see them make. And it ain't just the decisions they make when they're happy. It's also the decisions they make when they're mad. It's also the decisions they make when they're sad. It's also the decisions they make when they're irritated, when they don't like you for the moment because you've offended them. What do? This is just as much about fruit as anything else. And the spiritual and sexual boundaries kind of come together. Obviously, we know sex is more than just a physical experience. But we also recognize too, man, that like I am not somebody who is crossing the bridge of like, hey, we should make it a mandatory date in the first few months of us knowing each other that we should be over each other's houses. I mean, now again, if there's so many nuances to this conversation, there's a lot of different lengths of capacities that are deserving. Okay. And I think that's more for intentional spaces and not something that I'm going to come in here and just blast y'all with. Okay. I really do think for a lot of y'all, this is probably for the majority of y'all, we don't need to engage in anything related where we're staying over each other's houses past a certain point at night. Sleepovers. Okay. All that kind of stuff. It just opens up too many opportunities. Majority of y'all can't handle that. And this isn't necessarily a conversation where we're just saying, hey, stay away from it. Because one thing the church is really bad at is just telling you, out of well-meaning, by the way, just to stay away from it. Stay away from it completely. I'm someone who really wants to value the conversations around it, though. Because believe it or not, there are some capacities people have. No, we're not saying to take a shower together and being in bathtubs. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. But there is some level of nuance to some conversations though, where you aren't coming in with ill intention or temptation to do something crazy, going over your significant other's house and y'all are watching, cooking. Y'all are watching your favorite shows, whatever the case is. Like, there's intentional boundaries that both of you are going to lead with. Now, again, things get steamy, things get hot real fast. And so, if and you're honest with yourself, like, man, I can't handle that, then like, don't put yourself in that position and don't try to play macho as if you can, and then you really can't. And then you mess around and, give access to something too soon. But I do think regarding the sexual boundaries, it's very important that we're mindful. Okay. And honest about that up front. Okay. Hey, listen, I really think it's best if we don't hang in person at each other's places past 11 p.m. For some of you, regarding the like emotional pacing and all these kind of things, maybe for some of you as you're dating somebody early, hey, we don't need to be on the phone for 4 or 5 hours every time we're on the phone late at night. We don't need to be on FaceTime sleeping while we are, on FaceTime. That's a boundary. That's a healthy boundary to set. Cause it's letting you know, like, fam, I don't wanna build too much attachment too soon. To where now I'm just so used to having this person on the phone and I'm so used to just doing all this kind of stuff. And now 3 months later, this is no longer a thing. And I realize I'm more attached than I ever was. Like, this is how those kind of wounds build. Because it's the small things. Okay. So, yeah, we definitely don't want to give somebody access too soon. There's no reason why we should be bumping and grinding and do anything crazy on the first night of meeting, on the first date, on the first 3 date. There's like 90-day rules. Like, bro, fam, we just should not be engaging in that, fam. You don't know them. You don't know them. You don't know them. And I promise y'all, listen, and I know there's so many like different worries and different thoughts that come to mind, fam. There are so many ways to know if somebody is compatible with you. One, sexual compatibility. I'm at a place right now in this, in the studies of it and everything. I really don't think sexual compatibility is as big of a conversation as people make it. Can we just be honest? Like, sexual compatibility is not as big of a deal as everybody makes it. I want to know how they are in bed, and I want to know if they can please me, because that's really what we're asking. What you're really measuring sexual compatibility with is like, can they make you orgasm? I'll be the one to say it. Like, you're typically measuring that kind of compatibility on whether or not they have the ability to do that. How long they last or anything of that sort. Okay. And if we are already at a place where we are physically attracted to this person and it doesn't take much for us to start getting to those places, okay, well, you're clearly physically attracted, so that's not an issue. I think really what we're dealing with, though, is that we're trying to measure sexual compatibility by performance in bed. And we're trying to measure sexual compatibility by how often we feel or have the desire to lay with somebody, have sex with somebody, and all these kind of things. And from my studies, from my understandings, of course, all these things that I look into regularly, like, there are so many ways, y'all, to determine one's compatibility, and it has less to do with their performance in bed. And I'm not gonna go so deep into that because I don't have the time. We've talked about that briefly before, but it's not so much about the performance in bed that makes somebody compatible with you. But that's the first place that everybody looks, because that's what you've been trained to look at. And I think it's worth being curious, because there's so much more to the experience of sex than just the physical act itself. Okay? But we really have to be willing to set these boundaries so that we are not giving ourselves up too soon. We're not giving too many things up too soon. A lot of y'all would have a lot of a healthier experience in dating if you stop opening your legs to everybody who gives you a compliment. A lot of us, men and women, would have a healthier experience in dating if you would just stop trying to throw your body at them as a means of feeling like you can now be accepted, you're now wanted, and you now have meaning to your life or to the relationship. Okay? And by opening your legs, I actually mean having sex. I don't necessarily mean the literal. Because I see a question in here, but I don't know how legit that is. So if that's a genuine question, let me know. But yeah, and if that's legit, KK, right? Because there's so many conversations around that, y'all, and I want to have them with y'all, but I know, like, there's so many different directions to take. Oh my goodness, man! And maybe it would be beneficial, but I really want to be sure that I'm on my P's and Q's, as we might say, with that type of conversation. Yeah. So how do you change? Well, I think it's always an internal, right? So it's always an inward thing before an outward thing. Because honestly, can I be honest, KK? Like, okay, cool. Body count's around 100. and you want to settle down with a good man, but when they find out my body count, then they leave. Okay. Yeah. So one, all right. One, it's really an inward thing, right? It's an inward thing that we have to address, and not so much about like trying to determine, okay, are we a good person or bad person? Are we, heaven bound or hell bound type of deal? Like, no, I'm not even going there, because we're not here to add more shame or guilt to that than maybe what is already present and what's already secretly laying there. I think we have to just stay curious enough from an inward place. What did all of those experiences mean to us, right? What were some of the contexts behind us having those experiences? What were the meanings? What were the stories that we were telling ourselves, right? Because a lot of it is at a nervous system level. And instead of adding more rules and stuff, it's more so like just getting an understanding and awareness behind the beliefs behind us doing those things, right? So this is something that I've been recently going through in my program, Secure program for others. And again, if you're interested in joining that, send me a message, type Secure, send me a direct message. I want to get you in there, because this is a program designed to get you from anxious and avoidant attachment to secure attachment in a healthy way. Okay. At a nervous system level, you have the first week for free, and there might be a discount for you if you complete that first week to be able to join to have access to the full program. Okay. So I want you in there. Women are allowed. Absolutely. Absolutely. Men and women. Men and women. Okay. Send me a message, DM it to me. Okay. And then I'll get you going on that. All right. There's like an automated message that you'll get. Okay. And you'll just answer those questions. Okay. Typically you probably want to answer, anxious, or I believe it's anxiety, anxious, or attachment styles. Okay. And then there's another question in there. There's attachment styles, breakups, and then something else along those lines. Just DM me the message. I'll be able to get y'all where y'all need to go. Okay, just DM it to me, Secure. All right, and I got you, because I see the comments in here. DM it to me personally. Message me. All right, and I'll get it over to you. And if you finish the first week, there could be a discount for you to get the whole access to the program. But we just went through. I just uploaded the next few days for a lesson in a week, and we're talking about identity. And a big thing about identity, this is to kind of sidetrack a little bit of this conversation, but it's all gonna make sense. A big part of identity, man, is a lot of the actions, the words that we say and the things that we do, the actions that we do, they're not random, y'all. They definitely have some level of belief where something has to be true, whether it's what we've rehearsed, it's what we've been told. Okay, whether or not we necessarily agree with it logically, because there's some things that we know don't make sense, but yet our body and behaviors still show that, oh, like this is still something that we believe to be true to some extent. And it's not to, again, add more shame or guilt around it, but it's to stay curious. Something has to be true for us to behave the way that we do. So just stay curious. What has to be true? And it's not about what truth is right or wrong. Okay. But what has to be true in order for us to say the things that we say and behave the way that we do, or behave the way that we did? Because now we're getting into the deeper realm of understanding what identity gives us permission to do. Okay. And what identity, oftentimes based off what we identify with, we clearly would never do. There's like ceilings and floors to these things. Okay. So with your identity, there's a floor, there's statements and things that you say you'd never do. Like no matter how bad life gets, you will never be found selling drugs, or you will never be found doing, on a stripper pole, or I don't know, whatever. Okay. So like there's the floor there, and then there's the ceiling. The ceiling is kind of like those things that you want to have, but you never really believe you could have, or you feel like it's so far out of reach to gain. Having $1 million, being married, settling down. Okay. So it's like there's so many different things that we can address this conversation on, but that's typically where I start. And it's all in the Secure program, because believe it or not, it doesn't just address your dating life and relationships with other people. It addresses your beliefs. It addresses the life you live. It addresses your sexuality. It addresses your sexual experiences. It addresses all those things. Like, so, what that's hitting for, so I don't waste. Once I can lock in emotionally, which takes months, I could lock in sexually. Well, who says it has to take months for you to lock in emotionally? Number one. And number two, I'm not sure if you're referring to what we have going on regarding the secure program and wanting to know what it's hitting for so you don't waste your time. I'm not sure what you're referencing. But in terms of the secure program, you're 1000% investing in your time. It's not a waste of time. Everybody is talking about wanting healing and wanting to take directions and become secure, and you're tired of your anxiety and you're tired of your anxiousness and a lot of those attachment styles that push you to do all the things you do that you say you're tired of. Like, instead of giving you tips and tricks, this is actually something that's designed to help you stick with the change. It's not just doing something different and expecting amazing immediate results. This is actually doing something that gradually creates legitimate change, transformation inwardly that shows up outwardly. That changes, that literally transforms your view on relationships, your view on yourself, your view on your relationship with God, other people, all the things from a freeing place. And you're surrounded by a sisterhood for women, brotherhood for men, that is actually helping you in processing these things alongside with you, who are also in the same progress and process and various other programs, including the secure program. So like, none of this is a waste of time at all. This is all a win. And that's all dependent on how much you want it, though. That's all dependent on how much you want it. So send me a message, DM me, test and see. I have plenty of testimonials and people who are winning. I want you to have that too. But test and see. Because a lot of this stuff is that's as deep as it goes. So many of us are trying to fix these issues from symptom places when really it's so many things, so many roots beneath those symptoms that we really have to expose, be honest about, be curious about, and begin allowing ourselves, once we become aware of those things, to rewire. Okay. Kay, I don't know if I have a good man for you. I want you to be able to be okay with yourself, though. Because I think as long as you're safe with yourself, you enjoy yourself, you're present with yourself, truthfully, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, even with 100 bodies, you'll find somebody. It may not. I'm not saying it comes absence of. I'm not saying it comes absent of challenges. It comes with challenges, but you can definitely find you could put yourself in position to change, and because you're willing to change that, it puts you in a beautiful position. Because here's the thing, y'all. Everybody loves to clown with people who have high body counts, and again, I don't know how serious it is, but everybody loves to clown people for having high body counts, as if as if virgins are just that much better. Uh-oh. Just because your body count is less than 5 or 0 does not mean you're a qualifying candidate or that much better than somebody who's got a lot of them. Because guess what? You might be a virgin and you might be saving yourself for marriage and all of those things. And I don't hate you on none of that. I'm doing it. I'm living it. Your boy hasn't done any of those things, and doesn't make me any better. That's just a decision I've chosen to make. Okay, but I also realize I haven't been put in a whole lot of positions that made me feel like, oh man, this is about to go crazy. So I'm not somebody who brags about it and wears it on the sleeve. But like, there's a lot of people who like, oh man, high body count, that's crazy. As if like your low body count is actually what makes you more valuable. Now, granted, okay, it may be something that is allowing you to be more preserved, but get this, you could have less of a body count and still be just as crazy, just as dysfunctional, just as anxious, just as avoidant, just as nasty, just as disrespectful, just as mean, if not worse. And it has nothing to do with your body count. It has everything to do with your attitude. It has everything to do with your beliefs. It has everything to do with the fact that you just don't know when to shut up. It has everything to do with the fact that you walk around acting like you know everything, and you're just so much better than everybody else around you that you think it gives you privilege to look down on other people. I promise you are not much more of a healthier candidate, better candidate. If you're probably worse. So like we want to get out of this realm of believing that somebody with 0 body counts means that that they must be gold, and then you get with them and they're just as bad and just as dysfunctional, just as tore up. Because there's so much more to being a healthy individual than all of this surface stuff that we look at. And I'm not saying those things aren't important, but I'm also saying sometimes we make it more than what it really is, because a lot of people are just don't trust themselves with their ability to handle those things. And I'd rather you be honest about that, and then let's start building from there. Okay? Because I'm not trying to excuse anybody who has high body counts. I'm not trying to excuse anybody who is moving out here and doing all the things. No, there's some accountability and some responsibility that everybody got to play a role in holding. I'm for truth, so everybody can come get it. I'm from truth. I'm for truth. So I don't care if you got 0 body count. I don't care if you're a man, woman, whatever. You got 0 body count. You got 100. You got 1,000. You got a lot to deal with. So let's deal with it. But I do think a lot of us would see a lot of healthier outcomes, because a lot of you get so blurry-eyed because we are giving access to somebody so much that we don't even know who they are without us having the smash and dash pass. You don't even know who they are. You just know how they feel and how they make you feel, because it's easier to be felt than to be known. Right? And there's so many stories around that we want to stay curious about, to process, to digest, to understand, to make different decisions once we become aware of those things. But a lot of us are in positions due to pains that are pushing us, because we just don't feel comfortable enough with where we are, with who we are, with what life has brought us to. We would much rather go places to be felt than to be known. So it's easier to push out than it is to connect. That's why we trade intimacy, okay, for intensity. Uh-oh. That's why we trade intimacy for intensity, because intimacy is built on longevity. But what we like to do is try to cram that intimacy into 3 hours. Oh my God in heaven. Oh my. I hope y'all paying attention. We love to take what is supposed to be a longevity of a process, and we like to cram it in like 3 hours in a dinner, movie, and a nightcap. And for some of you, it's not even as deep as a dinner, movie, nightcap. You like to cram it all, what is supposed to be built in longevity, you like to cram it all in 3 to 4 hours of a phone call. Let's get on FaceTime and let's just talk till the night is over. What did Mariah Carey say? Who's going to call me? Who's going to stay on the phone with me till the sun comes up? Right? We looking for that type of love. And I'm not saying you can't have those, right? Because that's a conversation. And there are some people who, man, you talk about something that just was present, was available, you guys connected really well, and the conversation just kept growing. If it's natural and it's something that's healthy, that's a beautiful thing. I'm not here to tell you, hey, no, you should never do. No. I think if you're open to it and it makes sense and it's something that is progressing and is healthy, that's awesome. I think that can be a great sign. But there's a lot of you who cling to these 3, 4, 5, 6 hour call conversations because to you it means the world. It means everything. And that's how we continue to give access so fast and then mess around 2 months later and not be connected to the same person and then be wondering where it all went wrong. When in reality, we were attached too fast because we were trying so hard to cram intimacy into 3 hours of knowing each other. Y'all, intimacy don't work that way. This is why I really don't. I know what we're saying when we're talking about intimacy, and people use that as a code switch to just talk about sex. Obviously, there's so much more to intimacy than sex. Intimacy is not just a sexual encounter with somebody. Okay, but when we're talking about intimacy and how it's designed, y'all, this goes so much further than what you're trying to climax through in one night. And it proves a lot of y'all don't really know what it looks like to be intimate with somebody because we're still trying to chase after what a release. We're still trying to chase off of something that we can just get a quick rub out in about 5-10 minutes. And it shows. It shows. Before we even get to it just shows. Before we even get to the bed, it shows. And so we have to be willing to just be aware of these things. For some of you, some of your biggest tensions and being able to giving access too soon, your dating challenges are going to come from you just not simply giving in too soon, giving up too much too soon. And that's not just to your body. That's emotional access. That's physical access. That's spiritual access. Some of you guys are going to have to engage in this testing process as you're going back into the dating scene, as you're engaging in the dating scene. Some of you are going to have to be like, hey, listen, I would love to keep talking to you, but I got to call it an end. We'll catch up another time instead of talking all night, instead of going all day. Right? And that doesn't mean it's a negative thing, but we're still in early stages of dating. Y'all, the context to this entire conversation, early stages of dating. If you're like 2-3 years in, that's a different conversation. But if we're early stages of dating, I just met you, I just got your number, we just matched, we just exchanged some messages. Y'all, we have to move at a healthy pace so that we don't burn out so fast. And more importantly, so that we don't attach so fast that we make the world out of somebody that we just met. We don't know them. You don't know them. They don't know you. And there's so much more where this comes from, but I got to leave that there. Is this making sense? Let's not rush intimacy for intensity. Intimacy is longevity, consistency. This is a story. This is something that we've had to make decisions to engage in time after time, moment after moment, chance after chance. Intensity is something that we're trying to cram all this stuff in so fast. No. This goes in any direction. This isn't just sex. This is talking about conversation. So many of us are so caught up in trying to have the whole conversation in one moment. Y'all, I'm guilty of it. Something I've had to be intentional about working through. I cannot expect to have the entire conversation in this one moment. It is very possible that we could it is very possible to be working through a disagreement and not feel the pressure to complete the disagreement so that we become agreed on one night, one conversation, one disagreement. No. We have to learn to hold the tension of, hey, we're working through it, and it doesn't have to stop what we had planned for date night. It doesn't have to stop what we had planned for a conversation that we were going to have, just enjoying each other's presence. It doesn't have to stop there. But see, a lot of us aren't there in terms of holding that integration. And so this is the conversation and space that we want to build that in. Okay? Ooh. All right. I went there, but there's so much more where that comes from, y'all. I'm telling y'all. There's so much more where that comes from. But let's move forward. Okay? Here are some other things that we have to be willing to navigate. All right. And setting healthy paces, not over disclosing too early. Like, this kind of goes into the emotional pacing. We don't need to be sending detailed messages about our therapy sessions or, talking about traumas and trauma dumping in the first date. Fam, I just want to get to know you. I did not come here to be your coach. You did not come here to be my therapist. We did not use this time to connect as a means of venting. Can we treat each other like human beings for a second? I just want to be interested in your story without going so deep into your story that we start talking about traumatic wounds. There's more to your life than what happened to you or what didn't happen to you. And sometimes, people aren't necessarily as healed and prepared when all they view their life through is through what hurt them. And some people don't know how to make the difference and how to transition out of that. But that's a great start. If all of our conversations are through the lenses of what hurt you, then it's great chances that we've began identifying with the trauma, and that happened simultaneously. We identified with the breakup, we identified with the pain, and that can happen simultaneously. But let's not go so deep into believing that every conversation has to be centered on your pains, traumas, breakups, losses. There's got to be something great about where you are, who you are, and what you engage in that allows us to still have some fun conversation. Over disclosing too early. We're coming back to Hezekiah. Hezekiah opened up his entire palace. He shared it all. Some of you overshare because you don't believe that you'll be chosen if you don't share more than you have. Some of you overshare because you're afraid that if you didn't, then they wouldn't choose you. Some of you overshare out of fear of rejection. So you think the more you give, the less they'll have an opportunity to say no. That is what we have to be aware of, because that's not love. That's not the even infatuation. That is attachment talking. That's fear of rejection talking. And anytime we're disclosing so much so soon, what is soon, Sean? Hey, listen, I think you measure that by the early text messages. I think you measure that by the phone calls. I think you measure that by various different lanes, okay? But we should pay attention to that. There's a difference between talking about these things when you're 6 months in. For some of you, it might be 3 months in because of the level of consistent conversations. This kind of steps into the realm, of course, when you're talking about not over disclosing too early and, in various different ways. This also steps into the lane of knowing the volume of relationships, right? Because there's some relationships that carry some really strong capacities for great volume. So if you guys are talking regularly, things are going healthily. You guys are enjoying each other's time and presence, having conversations, all the things. Okay. Well, I mean, I think it's no wonder that you guys are actually feeling more and more safe with each other, because you're getting to know more of each other little by little, conversation by conversation, and it builds. That's a beautiful thing. And by month 3, you do open up to having those kind of conversations about, previous pains, hurts, or maybe some of the things that you've had to work through and heal through intentionally. Now, that's not to say that we may not talk about that earlier on, but we're going very much deeper into some conversations then, right? Because you guys have built some level of foundation through the consistency in the conversation to go further. And I think when you talk about volume in relationships, listen, I do believe that just like people will say, hey, let's not compare a 2-year marriage to a 20-year marriage. A 20-year marriage has a lot of different experiences. They've seen each other in their ups and downs, losses and wins. So yeah, we probably shouldn't be comparing our marriage that's 2 years to someone else's marriage that's been in the game for 20. 2 and 20, 2 different experiences. Not just because the 20-year has more experience, more pains, more things like that, but there's also a flip side to where somebody in the 20-year marriage, they don't even know each other to that same extent. The connection, the intentionality isn't really as much there. And that's not because the longevity isn't there. It's the same 20 years, but it's because of the access. It's because of the safety. It's because of the connecting and conversations, right? So when that isn't there, sometimes a 2-year relationship can be further than a 20-year relationship when it comes to connection, intimacy, and emotional capacity. Not because they've been in the game for 20 years, but because they were able to have deeper conversations about one another with one another, and it built a level of connection and safety a little bit sooner. So I'm telling you that the volume of relationships can differ between person to person. So that's why sometimes it's difficult to come out here and just say, oh yeah, no, you should wait, X amount of time and X amount of days. I think you have to measure it by, one, what are you ready for? What are you willing to share? What are you willing to open up about? And of course, staying curious about where does that come from for you? Because sometimes you might be willing to open up about certain things, but it's not really because, it's what's relevant to the conversation. It's because you fear if you don't share it, they're not going to choose you. If you don't give it, they're not going to choose you. And that is more so coming from lack, not abundance. And that's what we want to measure that by. So over disclosing too early can be different from relationship to relationship. That's why I'm saying, and we started out a lot of these conversations, knowing your values, knowing your capacity, knowing your alignment, and being honest. If we can do that, then a lot of these things are going to help us be able to navigate through it. And you're going to have some conversations with people that you meet, and it'll be a little bit deeper earlier on. You'll have some people that you meet, and it may take some time to warm up to get to know them and, have those deeper conversations. It differs. I just want you to grow into the awareness aspect so that you can trust your decision making based on what you see, and not turning it into this right or wrong, heaven or hell kind of conversation or talk. Okay? So now this also connects to not treating texting like intimacy. Y'all, texting is not a form of intimacy. Okay? Especially when you're just now getting to know them. I just posted some videos recently about, if you are someone who says if they don't text in 24 hours, they're blocked, it's actually playing a role in why you're single. And I believe that. That's not to say that you should, that obviously in a mature, growing relationship where you both are being intentional about your time and you're dating and it's official, okay, that's different. Okay, very different. But for a lot of you who just met somebody, now all of a sudden putting expectations on someone to answer your text messages as fast as possible to make you feel safe about the relationship and its status is a reflection point of where you are and what that moment is revealing in you. I'm not talking from theory. I'm talking through experience. Dating earlier on, I had a lot of time where I was matching, having conversation. And when there was a day that went by and we didn't have much conversation or any conversation to my satisfactory, it made me question the relationship. It made me question, oh my goodness, is there somebody else? Oh my goodness, do they care? Oh my goodness, do they like me? And this is so nerve-wracking because it put me in a position where I was constantly watching my phone, waiting for a message. I even went so far to look up Instagram pages to see, hey, like who, what is she doing? Only to feel more disappointed if I found a story post within the 24 hours. I found a new post on social media, and now we're making the story. Oh, so you got time to do that, but you don't got time to send me a message. Why do you feel so entitled for somebody to send you a message when you talk to them and you just met them? You're in stages of getting to know them. The level of entitlement that people carry that isn't even coming from places of clarity, it's coming from wounds, is astronomical. It's astronomical. I am not saying by any means that as the relationship grows, intentions are made clear, you both are on the same page, that now we're able to build that level of expectation to talk to each other. Okay. But some of us look at these videos where they pull out the phone and they set the timer and they say, they'll start the timer and they say, hey, babe, it's going to be a busy day today. Just know I'm thinking of you. And when I get to a chance in my day, I'm going to send you a message. But hey, we're going to actually go out tonight. So, get yourself dressed, get ready be ready by 7. I'll pick you up and we're going to go to your favorite place and enjoy some time together. Okay. We'll talk soon. And that took 20 seconds, 30 seconds. And they're like, if he just don't like you. He just don't want you. If he could, he would. If he wanted to, he would. Y'all be falling for that. And what's crazy is y'all apply that to somebody you just matched with, you just met, and you just got to know within 30 days. And the context to that has nothing to do with meeting somebody in 30 days. If anything, that speaks a whole lot more to the longevity of the connection and somebody making it official where this is legitimate boyfriend, girlfriend. This is intentional. They've been together. They've laid out where they're going, what they want to do, a lot of conversations on what communication looks like. And we're now acting on it. 2 different conversations in context. But we take that and we apply that same metric and method to somebody you just matched with on Hinge, somebody you just met on Instagram, somebody that just sent you an Instagram DM. And we're like, well, why aren't they talking to me? And then you read and then you see all these memes and you see all these posts on social media. Man, social media will have y'all in a chokehold, boy. I'm telling you. It did me. So I know it'll have you in one too. It did me. All these expectations, all these meanings, all these stories behind the delayed responses. As if this person is supposed to drop everything to answer to your text message and every beck and call. There's got to be something that we look at here and we use it as a mirror to stay curious about what this is revealing in me. I had to do the work, y'all. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it, but I had to do it because I realized that this stuff is driving me crazy. It's driving me crazy at the fact that I can't even walk away from my phone and even act like I'm not waiting for a text back because I desperately want to talk to this person. And that does show a little bit of interest and love and desire, sure, but it reaches the point of attachment when I stop engaging in what I have in front of me and I'm constantly waiting by the phone for a message, y'all. This just can't be the way that we do life, especially when it comes to dating. Especially when it comes to dating. And there's got to be some level of conversations that we're having with somebody that we're connecting with where we're saying, hey, what does it look like for us to have healthy conversations throughout the day? What are your expectations? So that way I know what to expect. So I'm not expecting too much. So I'm not expecting for you to do something and then you don't do it. And then I find myself mad at you. Now I don't want to talk to you. Now I don't want to, I think we set ourselves up with those levels of expectations. When you talk about healthy relationships, the best picture of healthy relationships, the best is two secure individuals coming together and saying they want each other but don't need each other. Because guess what? It doesn't create codependency. A good, healthy relationship in this situation, there's good, better, best. So the better, right? Maybe there's one person that's secure, the other person isn't, right? But the person that is secure is able to engage with all of the different nuances that somebody who is of the anxious or avoidant is dealing with, right? The secure person has the capacity to be able to engage in those things. I have the capacity to support you in your healing as you're navigating some of the meanings and stories you might rehearse that tells you if I text back late, something is up. And I'm not going to blast you if you send me a message and you're like, hey, I was really worried. I was really concerned. A lot of things going through my head and I just didn't know what to think. And instead of blasting you about it, I say, hey, babe, I appreciate you a ton. Listen, it wasn't my intention. I definitely want to do better in checking in with you and making sure that things are okay. Right. But I genuinely was busy with work today. And I didn't even have a moment to feel like I could, reach the phone outside of the message I sent this morning. And maybe I have some logs or some extra stuff to share with you on why that happened. Right? That's reassurance. That's building further trust. No one's saying that's bad. No one's saying that isn't helpful. There is a such thing as co-regulation in relationships. That goes a long way. That's a better situation. Someone who's secure, someone who isn't, coming together. And yes, you got some bumps in the road because the other individual is going through some things, but you guys are working on that together. She's working on that individually or vice versa. He's working on that individually and you're supporting that, not continuously, hey, why are we talking about this again? We're not continuously coming back to the conversation and be like, oh my God, this again. Yo, this is getting annoying. Right? When we're working together on this, there's a way that we can connect and we can grow and we can engage through this. Okay. But then there's the good situation. All right. So best, two secure people coming together. Better, one person in the relationship is secure. Good, I would say both people in the relationship are individually striving to become secure, supporting one another in that journey. Now, what attachment style they have, to be honest, if you're asking me a preference, please, for the love of God, don't be avoidant on avoidant. Oh, God. You talk about pain. Talk about pain. All right. Don't be avoidant with avoidant. However, the most common relationships that people are getting into today isn't even avoidant on avoidant. It's anxious and avoidant. So the most common relationships and the most common struggles people are having in relationships is the fact that it's anxious and avoidant. So if it's anxious and avoidant, that's a really difficult thing. Thank you for the gifts. I appreciate you a ton. Thank you so much. CIP Monk. Thank you so much. Thank you. So anxious and avoidant is really difficult. Anxious and avoidant is really difficult to navigate and deal with. Okay. And that's where a lot of people find themselves at. But if you both are looking at yourselves and you're saying this has to end and something has to give, and you're both willing to do the work to reconnect and stay together while dealing with the stories, the meanings, the beliefs, and all the things that cause you to navigate through that then you actually have an opportunity. But most people, a lot of relationships don't follow that. A lot of people are getting into these relationships because I'm lonely, because I'm desperate, because I'm chasing, because I'm afraid of rejection. I'm doing this because I'm tired of being lonely. I'm tired. I have a biological clock. I'm 28. I'm 29. I need to get in a relationship. And so all your reasonings of getting in that is actually what's causing a lot of harm. And so now these things are exposed and we don't know what to do. And we're expecting the other person to fix us. We're expecting something random to fix us instead of looking in the mirror and allowing these behaviors to be something that tells us we need to do some more work. Okay. So good is when two people who may not necessarily be in secure attachment, but are striving to secure attachment. Better is when one person in the relationship is already secure and the other is intentionally working on becoming secure, and there's support to build that up. Best, two people are coming together secure. And secure doesn't mean you're absent of anxiousness. Secure doesn't mean your absence of feelings. Secure doesn't mean your absence of, crazy things happening in life. It doesn't mean you're absent of emotions. It doesn't mean you don't get angry. It doesn't mean you don't feel sad. It doesn't mean you don't feel overwhelmed. It just means we know how to navigate it healthily, regulate our emotions, and move with awareness without aiming to blame everyone else around us for what is happening. But we look to control ourselves mentally and emotionally and even physically so that we can engage with the moment in a healthier way. So don't get it twisted. Secure attachment has nothing to do with absence of all these things. It has so much more to deal with us being able to show up in the healthiest of ways. But it starts with us being curious. Why do we treat texting like intimacy? CIP, Monk, I appreciate you. Yeah, we're talking about dating apps. We're in a dating app dilemma series, okay? And we're currently talking about boundaries, safety, and pacing within dating, okay? Whether you're using dating apps or, you're just dating in general, okay? What is a healthy setup to use here? So I hope that makes sense. I encourage you to check out the replay over on my YouTube, Coach Sean Walker, okay? So yeah, we have to be curious. Why am I treating texting like intimacy? Why am I defining the lack of text responses or delayed responses to mean something here? Stay curious. Stay curious, because that is a mirror being pulled up to you that is revealing something in you that you're still operating in lack through. And we just want to stay curious about that. Okay? Last three. All right? Not giving boyfriend, girlfriend access to someone you barely know. My God in heaven, y'all got to stop with this boyfriend, girlfriend talk, husband, wife talk, and you just met them and it's only been a month. Y'all set yourselves up for failure because you're not calling something for what it is. And realize how a lot of this is really getting us into the place where we're realizing, dang, I really don't call something for what it is. We're engaging in conversation. We are engaging in talking and meeting and all the things. We have to call a spade a spade. If they have not put a ring on your finger, you are not his wife. He is not your husband. If he has not asked a question to be your boyfriend and you his girlfriend, then you are not that. You're a friend. You're a passerby, possibly. Okay? You can, whatever it is, but you're not the item in the couple that you keep envisioning yourself to be until it's made official. The conversation has been had. The moment has been had. Some of y'all are sitting around in situationships that ain't even real relationships because nobody is deciding to call this thing a thing. And ain't it funny how when you start calling it calling a thing, it almost exposes itself? Because we're just living in honesty, and it may feel uncomfortable, but it's better to be uncomfortable for the moment than to continue living a lie, conflating comfortability with familiarity. Oh my God. Confusing and conflating safety with familiarity. Okay, so we got to stop giving boyfriend, girlfriend titles, access, husband, wife titles, access to people you don't know. I know he made a comment and said, man, she almost wifey material. That don't mean that you're his wife. I know that made you feel giddy all inside, but let's slow down. If there's one thing I've learned in my dating experiences, and of course coaching other people through it, is to not cling so much to words that are said. You pay attention to behaviors and actions. Words are not fruit, actions are. Words are not fruit, actions are. Okay? You barely know them. Take your time. What's the rush? No Leon Thomas. All right? How to exit gracefully or how to exit respectfully? Well, I think it's pretty simple. In order to exit a situation respectfully, we just need to say this is something we're no longer interested in. Okay, exiting respectfully and exiting without drama is one of the greatest indications of you becoming more secure. It's a great indication that you're becoming more and more secure when you're able to leave a situation without drama and without all this mess. On your way out, you start exposing, you start calling people names, you start being passive aggressive, posting on social media. Now you got nothing but dating story times talking about this one person that you don't like and that you don't agree with and you're not feeling. You got posts on going on your friends only stories, exposing messages and all this kind of stuff. Learn how to leave with grace. And part of leaving with grace is being honest about where you are. This is not working for me. I'm going to keep my search. You take it easy. And guess what? If they respond, oh, it's like that. Wow. And here I was thinking you were my wife. Oh, wow. Here it was thinking you were my husband. You just like the others. Why do you feel that inclined you to respond? I have just learned, y'all, like I do pay my phone bill. That $82 a month come out of my pocket. So I'm not obligated to respond, not nan one of y'all. And you for sure not finna pay that bill. So last time I checked, I paid for it. So I do get to determine who I want to respond to and who I want to send messages to. It's my phone. So that don't mean I got to respond to you. That don't mean I got to answer to that. Learn how to leave with grace, y'all. Learn how to leave with grace. If it is a situation where it's harassment and they just won't stop bothering you and all the things, all right, blocking them isn't the worst. Do it. But for a lot of us, sometimes we run to the block button because we would rather not put up with what we need to be honest about and deal with that. Instead, we would rather run from it. Let me just block you because now I don't have to be honest. Let me just block you because now I don't have to confront and address the things I said versus how I really feel. Let me block you because it's easier out of sight, out of mind. But then when your posts come up on social media, now I'm stalking, now I'm checking, now I'm being dysfunctional. Now, I'm not saying there's never a time to not block, but some of us use that block button real heavy, and it's oftentimes because of something we're not prepared to deal with. But if it gets to the place of harassment, all right. Clearly, I've set out this boundary. I said we don't need to keep talking. You decided to engage in it. You keep doing it. You aren't changing. You aren't doing. All right. Block. Okay. Canceled on me twice and still on the talking stage for months. Yohira, hey, I appreciate you dropping that. If you ask me, I think you're good to move on. Why are you staying? Something to stay curious about. What has you continuing to stay and engage? Okay. We have to learn how to leave respectfully. And it doesn't mean I need to make a mess along the way. Y'all stop coming to social media as a means of separation. You coming to other people that just as toe up for extra bonus points and brownie points for something you did to feel validated about what you did. We don't need to do that. Okay? Exiting respectfully is just stating where you are. This isn't what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something different, and I appreciate your time. We don't need to make additional promises. I don't need to water it down with offering friendship. A lot of y'all love to offer friendship as a means of giving somebody a landing pad and rejection, and it's only teaching your nervous system to keep open loops open. It's only teaching your nervous system that open chapters and open books are a healthy thing, and it's not, because you genuinely don't want to show up as a friend. So don't offer a friendship. Be direct with that rejection and let it be where it's going to be. And stop trying to control how other people handle those hard things, because people have the capacity to handle harder things than we give them credit for. And oftentimes, when we do that, it is actually a reflection of us projecting onto somebody because we genuinely couldn't handle it if somebody told us no without an explanation. I'm not telling you that from theory. I'm telling you that from learning and from experiences. I've been the person offered friendship, and I've done the offering of friendship. And guess what? Most of those people I never even followed up with. Didn't check in on, didn't send, because there was nothing there. And I had to learn how dishonest that was. So in the event that I do offer friendship and it is a legitimate one, just know I'm being very, very, very intentional with that. Very intentional with that. Because I enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed this and enjoyed that. I gained a good friend. It didn't work out romantically. I wasn't really that interested romantically. But hey, gained a good friend. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's very possible. But for a lot of us, it's not like that. You came in with the intentions of wanting this to go romantic. You learned some things about them that said, nah, this isn't for me. And so now you're offering friendship, not because legitimate friendship is there or you want to be intentional about that, but because you're thinking they need to hear that so that way they can let go a little easier. They can land a little softer. And that's you being controlling. Okay? So let's exit respectfully, be honest about where we are. Let's not add any additional fluff. Let's keep it moving. I promise you, you will actually earn a lot more respect from people when you're just honest about where you are and what you're looking for, instead of constantly lying to people to make them feel better. I promise. All right? And ultimately, what we're suggesting is that you can slow down without playing games. You can slow down without playing games. Slowing down does not mean that they're playing with you. They're not intentional about you. We can control the pace because it's out of safety, y'all. We got to take our time and stop allowing everybody else to hurry you. Stop allowing responses to hurry you. Stop allowing what other people are ready for that you're not ready for to hurry you into places you're not ready for. Okay? At the end of the day, this is your life. This is your process. These are the things that you have to deal with. You have to deal with the consequences. Not other people. You have to deal with them. And most of the times we're trying to make decisions based off of what makes other people comfortable. I want you to make decisions what makes you feel okay. And also recognizing, too, that we don't have to live in a hurry to so many different destinations and places to feel comfortable with where we are or with who we are. Okay? And at the end of the day, as we mentioned earlier, access is earned through consistency, not granted because you feel chemistry. All right? So here's some access levels that you might want to keep in mind. All right? Here's some access levels that you might want to keep in mind as you're navigating through the dating app, dating field, and all those things to be able to move forward. Okay? Number one is a profile access. Okay? This is the first level access. Level one, profile access. They can see the basics. Trust that somebody is able to make a decision based off the basics they see on a profile and whether or not they would like to get to know more or they are wanting to keep going. Sometimes some people just need the profile access because they don't need to go no further. That's why you swipe left. Or you might match and then there's nothing that comes out of it, and so you unmatch. Okay? Profile access is number 1. That's level 1. Level 2 is message access. Okay? So they can start a conversation. That messaging can start in the app. We do not need to automatically jump to phones. Now, again, there's people who have, if you're somebody who says, hey, no, I genuinely, I'm on the apps intentionally, but I just know from my experience that these things die down really fast. So I would just much rather, once we match, and they have settings on certain apps where you can send an automatic message, okay, and somebody matches, and you're like, hey, I appreciate you matching me. I would love to discover this more. Here's my number. Let's set up a FaceTime appointment. So they'll take the number and they'll send you a message, and we can already get into a FaceTime appointment. This FaceTime appointment is basically you being able to talk what you probably would in the messages, but it saves you more time, and it also allows you to weed out people who are more serious. I like that approach. I think that's a great approach. It's not something that I necessarily do. I typically like to start in the app. And, if it's something that is gradually building, I'll definitely, here's my number, or she'll offer her number, and we'll set up a FaceTime appointment in the duration of those conversations. Okay. But that's the level 2 access, messaging. There's a conversation that started, which then leads to number 3, which is the phone FaceTime access. This is level 3. Okay. So this kind of shows communication is available more consistently, right? I have your number, so I can send you a message directly. So, we're not necessarily missing notifications or anything of that sort. Again, this does not necessarily mean that now conversation needs to bump to every day. We're still in processes of getting to know this person. So we don't need to put expectations like, oh, okay, so now they can answer the call. I can call them whenever. I'm going to send them back-to-back messages and they need to respond immediately. No. We're still in beginning stages. Okay. Now, obviously, the more that you have conversations, the more that you can create this around. Right? Hey, what do you expect now that we have our numbers? We've had a FaceTime. Is there any kind of expectations you have within us communicating? Right? And we're able to move forward with that. All right. Access level 4 is date. So now we went from the FaceTime. We now got to see each other. We had some conversation. I feel a little bit more comfortable. You're not fake. You're not a catfish. And I like what I saw. And I like the conversations that we were having. He was handsome. She was fine. He was cute. She was cute, whatever. Now we have date access. Okay. Now we're talking about setting up a time for a date. Maybe you end the FaceTime call with that. Maybe you follow up with a message on that. Okay. But there's a date. Now we're progressing and moving forward. There's a plan in place, and we plan to follow up on it. Follow through is beautiful. One of the biggest gaps in dating right now is the follow through. And typically the lack of follow through, honestly, I think can measure from various different things, but the lack of follow through is often due to just something not being there enough for somebody to be intentional about that. Like, hey, I really enjoyed our time and I want to see more of you and I want to have more of this. So here's a date. I think that's just probably been one of the most honest aspects to dating I've been seeing recently. Okay. Emotional access is level 5. All right. Emotional access is level 5. So this is earning deeper disclosure over time. All right. So realize how we're not jumping to emotional access immediately. It's level 1 with profile, level 2 with messaging, level 3 with phone and FaceTime access, level 4 with a date. I don't think I should be diving so deeply into emotional vulnerabilities and connections if I have yet to see you. Okay? Emotional access, earning deeper disclosure. And it comes with time. So you might be at this level for a little bit because you're getting to know each other. You had the first few dates. It was competitive. It was fun. You had some conversations. You enjoyed the environments, the setting, the scenery. You had an introduction date where you went to a coffee shop. You know, you went for a walk and some ice cream. You went out in the public area and you guys enjoyed yourselves. It was for about an hour, maybe 90 minutes. And then, you know, that was a good opportunity for you to see, hey, do I want more of this? And if you do, we now get the next date. You wanted more. Now we get the next date, right? We're taking checkpoints. That's how we got to operate this thing. We're taking checkpoints. That first date was an introduction, and that's a checkpoint. All right. So the 6th level is relational access. Okay. And this is where they earn commitment through fruit. Okay. The more fruit and actions, behaviors, alignment, consistency that's seen, the more you've earned commitment. The more this becomes an actual opportunity of commitment and in a relationship with this person. Okay? Those are the levels. Take them with you. I'm sure there's more for us to discover as we're navigating through this, but that's my time. Put a 1 in the chat if this was helpful. Put a 1 in the chat if this was helpful. I hope it was. I hope it was. I appreciate you guys a ton for listening in and catching all of this conversation. You guys are the best. Again, the stream replay will be up on YouTube. All right. It's reposting as soon as we end this. Okay. And of course, we'll pick up on our next part next time and move forward from there. Another 2-hour conversation. I just cannot escape these 2-hour talks, y'all. Man, I got to be better with this. Okay. So a couple questions in the chat. Again, if you guys are interested, again, follow for more as we continue navigating through our healing and doing relationships the right way. I encourage you to DM me a secure message if you're interested in joining my secure program, something we highlighted earlier in the conversation to get you from anxious or avoidant attachment to secure attachment. I have a free 1-week trial available. And guess what? If you complete that first week trial, I actually might have a discount for you. Okay. But that's if you show up consistently, you're in the community regularly, all the things that are included in that. DM me a message, secure. I want to get you started on that. And for those of you who are on YouTube watching this replay, the link to, get your free relational diagnostic is in the description, becoming-secure.com. You can still hop over into the socials and send me the same message and we can follow up there, with what those next steps look like. Okay. I think that's it of the promotions there. Here's the questions. If you guys have any last questions, be sure to get them in because this might be the only question. I'll actually come back to a couple other questions earlier on if I can find them. So if you have any questions based off our conversation today or something that's on your mind, let me know. Lorena says, do you think it's bad if a female with a boyfriend, female with a boyfriend and I download an app to have female friends? My boyfriend got angry at me. You might have to ask that. You might have to ask that. Are you just simply asking, is it wrong for you to download an app to find female friends? Is that kind of what you're asking? And I'm assuming you're taken, like you're dating, you're actively dating someone currently. Is that the question, or is there more to that? Let me know if you're still in the chat. Because I would say this, if I'm hearing that question correctly. Now, I know that on dating apps they do have like friendship sections. Okay. But here's the thing. I really think that is something, especially if you're in a committed relationship with somebody, I really think that needs to be a conversation, because clearly us just going to do that can read off a lot of different things. Okay. And I would even know that there was a friendship like section on dating apps if I wasn't on a dating app. So imagine somebody who is familiar and aware that dating apps exist, but they don't know that there's a friendship section and probably wouldn't believe you if you told them. Right. So it's like, I think we want to be better with how we approach or have a better, healthier beginning to that type of setting, right? And because I think it starts with just kind of understanding the anger that's there. No, we're not excusing any behaviors that may go sideways with that. So of course not. But like, you can meet him in the middle with that by saying, yo, I understand why you are frustrated with this. And I understand my role in that. I didn't communicate what my goal was here with you in this. And I know how this appears to be. And so I do want to lead better with this. And I should have had a conversation with you, before going to go do this, thinking I was just looking for friends and not really paying attention to how this would come off with you. And I think that's a good start. And now we have some room to be able to talk about it in a better way. Okay. Because I definitely think it's hard to kind of it's hard to convince somebody like, yeah, this is just for friendship. Typically looking at a dating app, you're not thinking friendship first, especially if you're in a committed relationship. That can easily turn off a lot of red alarms. And that's probably where you get a lot of the reactiveness from. Okay. So just something to keep in mind. We definitely want to have a healthier beginning with that. And I hope that made sense. But I think to answer even the simple question, I mean, is it bad? Again, I think it's all based off of the conversation that you share with someone else. I mean, I'm not simply saying it's a right or wrong thing. I just think, hey, based on the conversation, based on what's wanted, and, based on what everybody in this relationship feels comfortable enough to engage in, I think you go off of that. Because I can definitely see how it can come off wrong in the event that it wasn't even discussed. So I hope that made sense, and I hope that made sense to others who were listening on that. Yohira, mentioned canceled on me twice and still on the talking stage for months. Yeah, I just think that is a very interesting thing, man. I think it's important for us to just be honest about it. Obviously there's a lot of things that could happen for cancellations to happen. So I'm not saying it's something that has to always resort to, they don't care and they're not serious. But again, it's like, we know what it looks like for somebody to be intentional and serious about taking things to the next step. And maybe they just aren't ready. They don't have the time, so it's just like, feel free to continue looking. Listen, y'all, I think a big part of dating consistently and healthily is really centered on us being okay with us continuing to keep our options open as we're dating. I'm not saying that we keep our options open in the sense of you're in a committed relationship. Don't hear that. What I'm saying is that as you're dating and getting to know people, you're collecting information and data. So, don't feel so pressured to just put all your eggs in one basket immediately. You're getting to know them and you're continuing to make other connections to get to know other people as well. And to where you'll end up making a decision on where you want to go with somebody. We're not dragging them out for 3 months. We're not dragging them out, wasting their time. We're not doing any of that, but we're being intentional. Okay. And I think there's a way to do that without feeling like, I have to cancel everything else because I finally found somebody who matched with me and showed me a little attention. Somebody who's in that pace, hey, they may not be too serious. So keep looking. And that doesn't make you desperate. That doesn't make you a hoe. That doesn't make you anything like that. So just keep that in mind. How should a woman behave before getting together? That's a loaded question. I think realistically, not just women, but men, how people should behave. I do think it's important to be able to build the skill of emotional regulation. I encourage people before they start getting into dating, and it's something either you've never done or you haven't done in a long time, and you haven't really been in places where you've been getting some kind of coaching, counseling, therapy, guidance. I really encourage that because we got to learn how to be able to navigate these things healthily. And if that's not a skill that you already have, I think dating is just going to test that. And I think it's supposed to. And we want to learn how to regulate that and be aware of it. So I think emotional regulation is huge. If you are unwilling to live in places of honesty with yourself, where you are, as you are, I don't know what you expect to do with somebody that you're going to find out or date or engage with. We can't expect things that we've built and habit in our singleness to not show up in principle when we're dating somebody. I'm going to say that again. We cannot expect the things that we've built in habit in our singleness to not show up as principle when we begin dating. Those things transition easily. So, I think you just want to live in a place of honesty, self-awareness, and emotional regulation. I think those are really, really good places to be. And I think you want to be honest about where you are in mental, emotional, and spiritual capacities. Okay, be honest about those things, because, I think if you have that listed out alongside with your values and being aligned in those places, I think you can go far and experience a lot of healthy outcomes in relationships and dating. Doesn't mean everything ends in the way that you envision. Doesn't mean that everything ends in a relationship, but we do recognize, we're able to navigate it, the ups and downs, without allowing those disappointments to fully crush us. And we only know that when it's tested, when we step out there and we get rejected and we wanted someone and it turns out they didn't want us. And we were building momentum and then it fell flat. It's all a part of the game. And so, yeah, I really think that's a big one. And I think sometimes you won't, I will say this too. Sometimes you won't really know how to behave until you step into those, environments to where your behaviors are exposed. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to use people as test dummies. We don't encourage that, but I think there's so many other areas in your life, including dating, that will expose the behaviors you currently have. And as long as you stay curious about that and aware to that, I think you will always have a best leverage, I think, in totality, when it comes to dating. And so hopefully that answers your question, but there definitely can be a lot more to that life of Julie. I hope that made sense. Oh, y'all about to drop my phone. Okay. Scrolling up. Okay. I don't know why my phone is like cutting up here. Here we go. I'm scrolling up for any more. How do I stop receiving and learn to give? Yeah, I think I have follow-up questions on that, like what do you feel is indicators that you aren't receiving? And what do you feel you need to give, but you aren't able to give? I think a lot of times we aren't able to give to the capacity we should because we haven't received enough of what we needed to give it. I think of the golden rule, give unto, do unto others as you would want done unto you. I think this just assumes that, the goal that I want to live by or possess or have, or the goal that I want to give, I possess. So I can't give you $1 million if I don't have $1 million. And I also think too, like, why do we feel we have to stop receiving in order to give? I think giving and receiving goes hand in hand. And I know that question was kind of asked in an awkward spot. We were talking about sex, so I don't necessarily think that was in that direction. But I'm just answering that in general regarding connections and relationships. I think we want to learn how to receive well. And I think our measurement of our ability to receive is sometimes dependent on how we give, but also the beliefs that we have around both of them and what they mean, depending on the context and the situation. So that might be all I have on that. But maybe if there's follow-ups at some point, we can dive into it. Last question, thoughts on avoidance. I think my boyfriend is, and I don't know how to approach this. Yeah, so again, avoidant attachment centers on fear, and oftentimes it's fear that I don't want people to disappoint me, so it's easier to push out than it is to be in proximity. And so distance is oftentimes the measuring stick or the immediate reaction to someone who is moving in these things. So I think, one, the avoidant attachment we can become aware somebody has, but ultimately we can't do anything without them first being honest and aware that that's what they're dealing with, and then their willingness to engage and heal through that. Now you can support that, and that support looks different based off of where they are, what they're ready for, and what you can engage with them in the journey. But yeah, I definitely think it's a way that can be healed and that can be worked through. But it starts with their honesty on the situation and matter, their awareness of it and how it's impacting the relationship, their role in that. And a big part of avoidance is just practicing not running from tense moments. Something that you see in various different directions, it's better to see it now than if you were to just become aware of it in marriage. This does give you an opportunity to see, okay, do I have the capacity to support this journey, to support where this is at, to support where this is going? But yeah, I really do think the awareness and honesty is a big portion. And then, you know, when it comes to them running away, right? Running away from conversation, conflict, they might ghost. They may, you know, slam doors if you're living in the same place, right? They walk away and seclude themselves. After arguments, they go for not just walks, they go for drives. You don't hear from them for hours. You know, it's tendencies of avoidant behavior. I think your job is to not chase, right? Because sometimes that's what an avoidant wants you to do. Other times it's creating that chase pull, that push and pull effect. We talked about the anxious and avoidant relationship dynamic that's pretty prevalent in today's culture. That's what's causing a lot of chaos in relationships today, for sure. It's the push and pull effect. And so your role isn't to try to chase them, to prove to them your love, or to prove to them that you're not going anywhere, or to even satisfy the doubt that you might have in yourself. So, you know, I'm going to chase them because I need them, or because, you know, I don't want them to leave, or I don't want them to think I'm a bad person, or that I'm wrong, or anything like that. I think that's something that we have to be able to catch. And I think one of the best ways to do it is to not chase them. So when they do go on that hiatus, we let them know, hey, I'm not going to chase you. I am not going to chase you. I'm not going to run circles around you. I am not Wild E. Coyote, and you are not Roadrunner, even though the behavior and situation may present it as that. I'm not that. And so if you want to work through this, we're going to work on this together in this moment, but I'm not going to chase you, and I'm not going to sit here and bang on doors or all that. No. And so I think there's layers to it, but I definitely think your best role and best bet, one, how honest are they about the situation and aware of it they are? And then number two, you know, asking the question, how can I best support you in navigating this to them is really good. So you can learn and listen. Okay, what is it that they need from me, and how can I show up in that space? And then thirdly, don't chase them. Their job is to heal that. The best you can do is support that. And I think the longer the duration of the relationship goes and you don't see progress in that area, and their refusal to engage in anything that's going to help them get through that, then I think you might have your answer in terms of where this relationship might be coming to a halt. And we have to ask the serious question, is this something that I can continue to support moving forward? That only you can answer. You know, it's your life, it's your relationships. You have to make the decision, and you want to make a decision that you're ready for. And so, yeah, but I do think that's a starting place for sure. I hope that made sense, Bailey. If you're still in this chat, I saw you sent a message, so maybe I'll have to repeat that, but I hope that made sense. Okay. Yeah, watch Polygamous on Netflix. Man, I've heard some things about it. All right. So that's it. I appreciate you guys a ton. That is my time. It has been a long conversation. I hope you got a lot out of it. Listen, if you want to check out next steps, be sure to check out the top of my page. Get that free relational diagnostic, y'all. This is literally a next step to all that you need when it comes to knowing your relationship struggles, shining truth on areas that you are struggling in, and being able to get real life applicable solutions to what the next step looks like for you to engage in secure relationships and healthier relationships. Nothing but good things have come back to me from these relational diagnostics, how honest, upfront, exposing it is, but also helpful it is, because now people know exactly what to do based off of the answers that they're giving in truth. Okay, so I want you to have that. That's your next step. Be sure to go to the top of my page and click that link, and then you're going to click Enter Relationship Portal, and there you have it, beginning that questionnaire. You'll get your free relational diagnostic and next steps. If you finish that diagnostic, you're going to quit. You're not going to quit. You're going to click, book your qualification call. Okay, the qualification call is free, first and foremost, but that actually allows you to look and invest into the final next steps. So you'll answer some qualification questions, and then you'll see what what next step, what program, what direction, okay, that you will best benefit from as you are on your journey to healing, and then what it looks like to really get that going. All right. And that qualification call that's free, that gives us an opportunity to meet and to really see if there's something here that can help you along your journey. Okay. So be sure to do that. Be sure to send me a message, DM me Secure if you're interested in joining my Secure program, as we mentioned earlier, getting you from anxious or avoidant attachment to secure attachment in a healthy nervous system modality manner. And new content coming out. Pay attention to YouTube, social media, all the things as content is being pushed. And we are looking to continue to invest in happy, healthy healing and doing relationships the right way, which starts us doing the healing work on ourselves first. Okay. I appreciate you a ton. And as always, until our next conversation, be easy and be breezy, my friends. Peace. Hey, appreciate you a ton. Appreciate you a ton. YouTube, Instagram, all you lovely people, be easy.